So I showed in the last video a quick demo of what we're going to be doing with the Lexicon object, and by extension we'll also be creating a Word object. I'm going to actually recreate those, but I'm going to use the same classes that we've had before. But I'm going to start over from scratch on it, and I won't actually be linking from the main program to any of the previously entered data. I'm just going to use that solely as kind of notes for moving forward. I'm going to walk through step by step how I'm creating it. But for the overhead, I wanted to show some quick changes that we did in Form 1, because I'm not going to go through and add these back in. We've added things like this language file and the words file and this audio directory, as well as the lexicon file. And more importantly, we've added this lexicon separator in that will be used to help divide up the lexicon entries when we're getting into that. So if you're following along, make sure that the header of your Form 1 looks roughly like this. It can be in a different order, but you need to have all of these variables. I did reorder some of them and kind of arrange it a little bit more logically in a group with the comments in there to try to help clarify a little bit more of what's going on. Also, I will show you user hasn't changed, so it should still look like this on your end. Language should also be the same as before, but you want words to make sure that it looks like this. There could be some differences that we've added in there, like the audio file, I believe, is in there. I think the last time we looked at this in the videos, it only had the ID, as a matter of fact. So you're going to need word or phrase as well. And this is what we're going to be using to create actual words. And then the lexicon is how we're going to link them. And importantly, on the lexicon, you can see all of these are just the long. So long is just an integer, but it contains more digits than a usual integer. So that's why it's long. But it is basically just a number. That's why down here we're using integers as the reference to them. The important thing is the associated words or phrases is going to just be a list of integers. So that's just something to keep in mind. But again, this list of integers are long integers. They're not the normal integers, because we're taking the milliseconds that have been since the beginning of epoch time in Unix as the ID for the words and things that we are creating. There are other ways that you could do that to guarantee that your IDs are unique, but this is just a quick and easy way that I've decided to do it for this program. And I should note that a lot of what I'm doing here, this is just personal taste, and some of it is just to show you the things that can be done. You can feel free to optimize, use different things than what I'm doing and all of that. This is just to show you some of the techniques that you can use, not the techniques you have to use, and not even necessarily the techniques that are best to use for a specific thing. So bear that in mind. I'm not making any promises that this will give you a university degree in programming if you follow any of this advice. So with all that said, I'm going to now just create brand new forms that we're going to use for our program. And they're going to be slightly worded different. So I'm going to keep the original ones. I've got create word, and I believe the other one's update lexicon. I'm deciding that for this, the official moving forward version that we're going to be working on together, let's go ahead up to the project menu to add form. And we're going to start with the lexicon. And what I'm going to call it is actually manage lexicon. And it'll be a .cs because it's a class, but it's also a new form. So we get this new window. We'll make this a little bigger for now. And remember, one thing we want to do is update the text down here. So we'll come down here, put the space in. And I don't always do that, but it's better to do that so when somebody reads it, they can see the space. Now, when we're setting this up, it's a very easy setup. We're going to start with a label. And we'll come over here, and this label will be the lexicon language. And that's basically just the language that we're using. So we'll come down here, and the text we'll put in here is going to be select the lexicon language, like that. So we'll have our label in here, and what we're going to use to store it is a combo box. So we'll line up the combo box right below it. And for combo boxes, I abbreviate them just like I do list box as an L box. I do combo box as C box. And then this is going to be the lexicon languages. So we will store all the lexicon languages that we can choose from in this box. So this is just the lexicon side. We're also going to need to repeat that on the opposite side over here. So I'll put it about there. The label name is going to be the target languages. It's going to be what we're going to select for the target language. So we'll come down here and say language to translate into. And then once again, this is going to get its own combo box. We'll put that here for now. Line it up a little bit. And this is going to be C box. And then this is going to be where we're holding the target languages. So we will put that in on here. And let me just make sure I'm keeping consistency. Did I put? Yes. So I'm using plural on these. So just keep consistent. That's the best way to do it. At this point, then, I want to look at it here and kind of line up these. You can see that there will be lines that show up. So if this is roughly equivalent, this down here is too low. I want to get it centered with the line that appears between it so that they're roughly spaced the same. And this probably, we can go ahead and move this all the way over to here and this all the way over to there. We will change the size of the window later. So this isn't super critical. I just want a rough estimate where we're at now. So after we've got this, then the next step is we're going to add another label in. And this label over here is just going to be telling us that we can search for things. So this is going to be the search on the lexicon side. So we'll say search lexicon words. And the text that we're going to have it say is just a simple search for, like that. And we can actually click on this, do a Control-C. Now I'll do a Control-V. We've duplicated this label. I'm going to put it over here for now. And then we can just come up here and change this to the search on the target word side. But it's going to be the same exact text. And how we're going to enter the search is we're going to use a text box. So we'll put the text box right underneath here. And I want to make the text box a little bit bigger, just so that it'll work for extra words. This text box up here is going to be TXT, and this is going to be the text that we're searching for on the lexicon side. So I call it search lexicon word. That's going to be the text. And we will be able to search for this. Once again, I'll select it, do Control-C and then Control-V, and move this over to here. And again, we will adjust things in a minute. This is going to be called then the TXT search target word. And then when a word is typed in, we're going to need to have the ability to actually select it. So we're going to move a button here, put the button on this. And on this side is going to be BTN. And we're going to have this be the add from the lexicon side. So we'll say add lexicon word. Put that in there. And the text will be add. Now I'm not putting an ampersand on this one because there will be another add button on the other side. So let me go ahead and shrink this down a little bit like that. Select it, do Control-C and Control-V. And we're going to move this one over to this side. And this is why I wasn't as concerned with where we're going to put this yet, because we still need to arrange this. So this is going to be the button, but it's on the add target word side. And now I will grab all of this and bump it over a little and move this so that it's in place here. Now we can just kind of line this up that way. The search should be lined up there. And this makes it a little bit easier to look at. So once we have these in place, we're going to be using list boxes to actually store the data. So we'll grab a list box and we'll put it right under here. We'll drag this out a ways and then drag it down for a bit. This list box on this side is going to be the list box that contains the lexicon words. So we're going to call this one LBox lexicon words, like that. We want the same dimension. So again, Control-C, Control-V, move this over to this side. And this one is going to be called the LBox target words. So this will be filled with the target words that we're going to use. And then in between these two, I want a way for us to actually put data out there. We're going to display data. And the way that I want to use to display the data is actually putting it into a rich text box. So I'm just going to grab this rich text box and then put it here, give a little bit of space in between like that. And we'll make this the same length, and we'll put that about like that. And then this will let me grab all of these. I need to make sure to include the button on there too. And then we'll move this over and put it where it's roughly the same distance on that side. And now we can finally bring up the margins like so. And we've got our rough dimensions. Again, you can make this however big or however small you want. So it's not super critical. I do see that like this add button is not quite as close as that one. So that looks a little better. And I actually think this is lower down. So we will bring this up, come down like so, line that edge up that way. Again, you can make yours prettier however you want, but let's rename, before I forget, let's rename this rich text box. So for rich text boxes, I call them RTB, and this is just going to be a display. So it'll be RTB display, and we'll put that in there. Finally, we're going to need some buttons at the bottom. The first button that we're going to need is going to go right here. And this one's going to be called the BTN for link. We'll just call it button link. But it's actually going to be more than just linking. So the text that we will put on here is going to be and link. And then we'll put a slash unlink selected words. And we'll just hit enter on that. And you can see that doesn't really fit on here. So we'll grab this margin and make it a little bigger. And I'll just put it like that. Again, make this how you prefer it to be. But once we've got this in place, we need just 2 more buttons and we're good to go with this. So grab a button, put it down on this side. So here we'll put BTN save. We'll come down here and do and save. And finally, we'll grab a button and put it over here on this side, line it up here. And this one is going to be BTN exit. And we'll come down here and do E and XIT. So now they can do Alt X to get to the exit. And really quick, let's trim up some of this margin here. So we'll bring that up a little bit. And what I like to do, the first thing I always like to do is let's go ahead and make the close function here. So we'll double click on exit and we'll just put this dot close. If you want, you can add in a message box here. I'll put this in here. You can add message box. You can add a message box to ask, are you sure you want to close? Now that's typically going to be used when you have data that you might have updated but not saved yet. So now that that's done, let's go ahead. So once we're done with this, we just save and let's go back up to project and we're going to add another form. So we're going to want to add in the words next. So let's call this one manage words.cs. And actually, we're going to be doing one word at a time. So I'm going to make it singular, manage word.cs. So again, this comes up and this one, we'll just move this out a little bit. This is going to be a slightly smaller one, so we don't have to worry quite as much, but we'll throw out the label here. The first label is just going to be a label informing us of what the language is. So we're just going to call this the word language. And the text down here will say language. Boom. Now, the way that I'm envisioning this is we're going to actually fill out what this is for most of the time. But we're also going to make this window flexible enough that if somebody is creating a new word from scratch, not from the lexicon, they will be able to select a language and go from there. So we'll add in a combo box so that they can select a language if needed. This combo box, therefore, will be cbox language. And I always have to make sure I'm spelling that correctly. But what we'll do is we're going to come down here where it says visible. And we're going to set this to false and just save that. So it'll show on here, but by default, it's not going to show up at all. And there's a reason for that. And in fact, we can even move this over to here and have it on this end if we want to, because the label will show on top and then this will be invisible. But if somebody actually needs to pick one, then it will show the label showing right by the combo box. So this is probably even a better spot for it. So after we've got that in place, let's go ahead and grab another label, because what's going to be right below this, we'll line that up, is going to be another label. And this label is going to be informing us that we can type in the word or phrase, because this isn't limited just to a word by word flashcard. You can put in phrases, sentences. You can put paragraphs in if you wanted to. That might be a little bit extreme, but you can do that if you want. So the text on here is just going to say word or phrase, colon. And underneath that, we're going to use our text box to enter the data that we're going to be putting in. So again, the text box, txt, and this is going to be the word or phrase. So txt telling us it's the text box, and this is the word or phrase. And let's go ahead and just grab this and pull it out a ways. So again, people have the ability to write long strings of text. We want them to be able to. And the more that you can see before it starts scrolling, the easier it is on somebody who's looking at that. So after this, we're going to then need a label underneath here. And this label is for the audio source. So we'll just say audio location. And we'll come down here and we'll put in location of audio file, colon. And I put a space where it actually doesn't matter, because we will actually programmatically update this text while we're running this. So for now, this is just a template so that we can see it in place. And for this to work, we're going to put buttons underneath. So the first button, which I'll put right here, we're going to do btn, and let's call this one open audio, and it'll be what we'll use to open the audio file. So we can do the and open like that. And in fact, actually, I do want to clarify open audio. We'll just call it like that. And we'll come back over here, make sure that this is a little bit bigger. Now we can do Control-C, Control-V, so that the same size is in place, but this button is one we're going to do button, and we're going to call it play audio. And we'll come down here and do and play and then audio. So the and p, if they do the alt p, they'll be able to just play the audio. But we want to actually set this, we're going to keep it visible, but we want to come up to enabled and set enabled to false on this one. So it will initially load with that grayed out. And I think in the demo, I didn't have that enabled, but we're going to, as we do this, we'll start off that as long as there's nothing in the audio file, that will be grayed out. But as soon as we add an audio file, then you're able to actually hear the file. So that's a good thing to put into place. And then once again, we just need the final buttons down here. So we'll put a button on this side, do btn save. And we'll come down here and do and save. And then we'll grab a button that we'll put over on this side. I'll put it about here. That looks good. Do btn exit. And we'll come down to the text, and that'll be E and sign exit on that. And this will be our word form. So we can go ahead and move like this. This is a little bit far out from what I want. So I'll move that there, and then I'm going to move this over like that. Again, this is just customizing, and you can customize it to taste however you want it to look. So then we save this. We go ahead, double click on exit, and we do this dot close. So again, you can add an optional message box before closing as well. I'm not going to do that because for me, it's smoother if I don't have that in place. So we've got the layouts that we're going to need to use. Now, how are we going to access this? Let's go ahead and go back to Form 1. So if like my screen, the form is no longer on the tab, you click this little drop-down button and look for Form 1. And it's actually Form 1 Design that we're looking for. Now, I've already added this on the menu item. I don't want this anymore, so I'm going to delete the update lexicon because we're not going to use that. And then I'm going to come down here and do and manage lexicon. So I'm going to create this manage lexicon, double click on it. And in fact, I don't even need this at all anymore. I can delete that out because we're not even going to use it. Once I'm done with everything that I might need those other forms for research on, I'm going to delete all of those previous ones completely. But in any case, on here, we're going to need to open the window. And the one that we're going to open is going to be the Manage Lexicon window. That's where we're going to drive everything from. So we do this just like we do anything else. We do Manage Lexicon, and this is going to be a new Manage Lexicon form, which is going to be a new Manage Lexicon. So we got this open, and of course, we do the show dialog to actually open it. But if you remember, the first thing that I mentioned is that you have to have at least 2 languages for this to work. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this where we start searching for the languages. We can either check it before we even do this. So for example, we can check if there are at least 2 languages already set up. If so, do this. That's one way to do it. Or we can actually do it while this window is loading. Now the difference between the two is optional for most part, but I'm kind of preferring to do it while we're loading the other window, simply because at this point, we don't have all those languages loaded. We're going to need to load all the languages when we're looking at the languages later in the new Managed Lexicon form anyway. So because we're already going to need that data in that, we might as well do the check on that form itself. So we'll save this, and we'll come back to the Managed Lexicon, and we actually want this. This is part of why I do the double click on the button, so that we actually can get to this level. And now the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to load in all the languages and check if there are more than 2. So that's going to be the first thing. Let's get to that code in the next video.